Hi folks, so I thought I'd do one more video. I've uploaded two so far, both when I've been at work today. I always feel better when I've been at work, really do, because I'm doing something that I'm passionate about, something that I love, something that I really enjoy, got quite a bit of knowledge on, fairly confident. There are moments here and there when I stumble a little bit and forget a few things and get a little bit mixed up and sort of like put my foot in it and, like I say, just completely come unstuck now and again, which happens every now and again, not all the time, not constantly and not throughout the whole day or whatever, but every now and again, here and there. But even in those moments, I don't worry about it as much as I used to now. In fact, very rarely do I worry about it anymore, sort of thing, because I'm fallible. I'm going to make mistakes, so I accept it and I just move on. And more often than not, they're not like major big gaffes or anything. Do you know what I mean? They're just little stumbles here and there that we all kind of have. Anyway, so like I say, I always enjoy that because I always enjoy being at work and delivering the training. And the thing is, it helps me to stay focused. I feel more positive, I feel productive, and again, when I think about it, because the sort of those other videos where they're quite sort of me very down and negative and so forth, it's kind of hardly surprising considering, one, I hadn't eaten in like 3 days at that point, whatever it was. I'd been stuck in the house for that length of time as well, for 3 days. I hadn't even budged out of the house, do you know what I mean? So, I like being out and about, and being stuck indoors, it gets you down. Well, it does me, anyway, I mean, it's alright the odd day here and there, spending the day indoors, like on a weekend or something, say, on a Sunday or a Saturday maybe, whatever sort of thing. The odd day here and there, it's fine, you know what I mean? Just lounge around, watch movies or whatever, something like that, or whatever. Or, if I can get a bit more productive, which I'm intending to do, but I think the thing for me is not to push myself now, because the more I try to crack that whip on myself, the trouble is, the more I kind of like resist, do you know what I mean? So I basically have to be just a little bit more subtle with myself, a little bit more gentle with myself, a little bit more less disparaging, and just try to be a little bit more positive towards myself a little bit. And I'm sure I'll do things when I'll do them, and not to sort of like really think to myself, oh, you're a waste of space. Anyway, but like I say, the thing is that being stuck indoors, it's literally like the four walls close in around you, sort of thing. It's a bit like that stir crazy thing, so it's hardly surprising, I suppose, in some ways, that I got in a very negative mindset, and I really did. I haven't been like that. It's been a very long time that I've been that negative and that down and that feeling that way. To be quite honest, it's been a long time. I've had moments here and there, you know what I mean, don't get me wrong, there's been moments, but they've only lasted for a couple of days maybe, or maybe not even that sometimes, a few hours or whatever sort of thing, but I've always managed to turn it round, or gone out and done something, or met somebody, or spoken to somebody, and that's kind of generally helped, or gone out and done a video, like I was saying in one of my earlier videos today. All of that usually helps me to sort of bring myself back out of myself, and to stop being so negative and so forth, and so self-centered and focused on me. But like I say, I think it's a combination of a lot of different things, and I think also the fact that because of how long this money situation has been dragging on for, it's not just a couple of months here and there or whatever. It was quite sporadic at one point where there'd be maybe a whole year where everything was hunky-dory and ticking over, and I had plenty of money and plenty of food. My kitchen was always stocked, it was always full of food, you know what I mean? I had lots of food. I didn't have to worry about, even if I'd run out of money for about 2, 3, 4 days, You know, I had loads of food in the house. I didn't have to worry about it. You know, I could go almost a week without having to worry about having no money, because I always had plenty of food in the house, and that was enough. You know, all the bills were paid and everything else, and this, that, and the other, and blah blah blah. All of that was great. Do you know what I mean? Because, you know, all that was done. So, you know, being without money, it wasn't necessarily about being without the money, because, like I said, you know, I've done that many times before. I've been in situations where I've had no money, but like I said, since I've been living in my flat, it's only in the last 18 months where it's got this bad, where to the point where, and again, if you look in my cupboards right now, I've got 1 tin of beans and I've got some bread. Flipping it. Sorry, that really that threw me for a minute then. Why do they do that? Well, I mean, I know it's, oh, you know, sorry, that really threw me then for a minute. Presumably you heard that all of a sudden out of nowhere. What? Hey, who? Sorry. Anyway, so yeah, the thing is that, like I say, I always had food, and again, like I said, the periods in between where not having any money and then the next lot of money coming in, the gap in between was maybe a week maximum, if that. You know what I mean? I budgeted really well. I made my money last. I wasn't frivolous with it. You know, and yes, now and again I'd treat myself to the odd video maybe, or something. Do you know what I mean? But I wouldn't go mad. I wouldn't be spending it like a man with no arms, as my dad used to say. So you spend money like a man with no arms. I never quite understood the logic of that. But anyway, that's a whole different story. But the thing is, like I say, you know, I had food and everything in that sense, so I didn't have to worry about that. But now, you see, the thing is, it's not just about not having any money, and it's not just not about having any money for maybe a week or whatever. Now we're talking almost 3 weeks in between where I'm getting any money at all. Do you know? And then I have to rely on handouts, and I have to rely on the kindness and generosity of people around me. And that starts having an impact, because that's not what I want. That's not what I want to be. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to be having to rely on yes, it's very kind and it's very nice of what people do and to help you out. Of course, absolutely. But do you know how that it eats away at you? It does. It gets under your skin. Don't forget, I was homeless for 20 years. I didn't start begging for, well, I don't know how long it was whilst I was you know, I don't know. I haven't got a clue off the top of my head. I would say, and I might be wrong. It might be longer. It might be less. But I would say at least a year, maybe 2 years before I actually got round to plucking up the courage. Actually, you know, because I'm I used to be extremely introverted. I still am to some degree, but extremely introverted person. Very painfully shy. Found it extremely difficult, socially awkward. So for me to start begging money off complete strangers in the street didn't come naturally. It wasn't easy. You know what I mean? It was the bloody hardest thing I ever had to do. Well, one of the hardest things. There's been plenty of hard things to do in my life. But the thing is, none of that was easy. None of that was simple. And again, you see, the thing is, it eats away at you. It eats away at your self-respect. It eats away at your self-confidence, all sorts of things in a sense, in a very psychological way, and in ways that you don't always necessarily notice. Do you know what I mean? Because you're trying to survive, you know. And so I guess in some ways, even though I have a roof over my head and I keep myself clean and I've got clean clothes and so on and so on and so on, that in some ways it feels very much like back then that I'm having to, well, I'm not literally begging in that sense, but you know, the thing is, it feels kind of like that in some ways, and it eats away at you. It eats away at your self-confidence, your self-esteem, you know. And you can only take so much of that after a while. Do you know what I mean? You can only take a certain amount before it really starts getting underneath you, and it starts depleting whatever reserves you've got of trying to keep that smile on your face, of trying to keep that positivity, you know. And you know, I guess that's part of what I'm doing. I literally just doing this straight off what's I wasn't thinking about what I'm going to say or anything. And now I'm starting to realise that perhaps in some ways I'm trying to give an explanation of to what's been going on, why those videos the way they were, because it did seem to turn a few people off. It did seem to make some people unsubscribe from my channel, and okay, fair enough. You know, yes, it upset me. Yes, I felt, because again, it ate into that same negative, you know, self-destructive view sort of thing, you know. But you know, in the grand scheme of things, you know, it's like at the end of the day, it's not the be all and end all of everything sort of thing. And you know, obviously, I'd like to be able to keep my viewers, and I want to keep people entertained, and I want to keep people happy on my channel. But you know, I'm human, I'm fallible, and I guess in some ways I'm supposed to be doing this documentary, wasn't I? But again, that I'm sorry, you know, believe me, I'm not happy about that situation. But again, I'm not going to start making excuses necessarily, or maybe I am in a way, I don't know. But the thing is that at the end of the day, it's kind of like I've started so many different projects and never finished them. And yes, that's a poor show, whatever, blah blah blah. But I've come to the conclusion now that I'm not gonna say that I'm gonna do this or do that or promise this or promise that, because one, I hate letting people down. I hate letting myself down. You know, the thing is, I'm letting myself down. So the thing is that I'm not going to do that anymore, because the thing is that, you know, I have all the best intentions in the world, and you know what they say about best intentions. So I'm not going to do that anymore. But if something happens with the channel in terms of like I do something, I do a document, if the documentary appears, it appears. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You know, I don't want to keep raising people's expectations or whatever sort of thing, because I know what that feels like. Do you know what I mean? And then those expectations are not met. So, as I said, I'm not going to do that kind of, you know, I'm not going to do that. And just, you know, things will happen when they happen. Honestly, it's just, you know, I'm very weary these days. I don't know if it's my age. There may be other factors that I'm not aware of. There may be some underlying health issues going on, because again, thinking about my smoking, thinking about recently I've had a bit of a cough with that cold. It's gone now, but you know, the thing is, I can't help but in the back of my head be mindful of it and think like, you know, where is this leading to? The fact that I'm always out of breath a lot of the time, do you know what I mean? When you must have noticed on my videos when I'm even when I'm just walking down the street, you know, very laboured breathing sort of thing. So, you know, that's obviously not a very good sign. So the thing is that, you know, in terms of my energy levels, and also the thing is that, like I say, there might be a physical underlying issue going on that I'm not really aware of. So, you know, all of these things factor in terms of like how I'm feeling, my general mood and so forth and what have you. And I've just watched a very interesting video on YouTube about depression, and that there's definitely a genetic component. They reckon the latest research is there's a genetic component, and there's definitely a physical component in terms of people's brains. I forget what part of the brain it was. It wasn't the amygdala this time, it was something else. Hippocampus, I think it was, the hippocampus. That part of the brain, apparently, in people that are depressed, especially over long periods of time, and particularly under stress, when they're under stress, that part of the brain actually shrinks, and actually the connections between the synapses and so forth starts to becoming degraded or something, and they reckon it can be revitalized, but you know, the thing is that it's you know, it actually shrinks, that part of the brain, because of the depression. And anyway, it explains it much better on the video than I'm explaining it. And off the top of my head again, sorry, because I didn't expect to talk about it, so I didn't think to, oh, let's make a note of it and then I can pass the information on, whatever. If I find it again, I'll let you guys know about it, if you're interested. But yeah, so it was a very interesting documentary there. Well, not sorry, not documentary. It was a very short video. It's about 10 minute long video, something like that, I think. But very informative. You know what I mean? And very easily. I love the style, the way they did it, because it was done in very bite-sized pieces of information, very easy to understand, and sort of slightly animated. You know what I mean? In certain parts, the way they explain stuff. It's really, really good. I liked it. They've got a series of these. There's a channel there, and sorry, I can't remember the name of it. Something Science, I think it's called. Anyway, sorry, I will try and find out. Yeah, so, like I say, you know, they're explaining about depression and how it can have a physical impact on your brain and so forth, and this, that, and the other, and blah, blah, blah. So, like I say, you know, that's all got me thinking. It's got me thinking in terms of, like, you know, if I stay in that sort of negative mindset sort of thing, that it'll just get worse, and I'll just feel worse, and you know, and so forth, and it's just a perpetuating cycle in that sense. You know what I mean? But I'm determined to pull myself back out of it, because I've always done that. Like I say, I was diagnosed with depression way back in the 80s, when I was about 18, and you know, I did have medication for a little while, and at different times and at different periods throughout my life. But I don't like taking it. Plain and simple, I don't like taking the medication. I don't want to become dependent on it. I don't want to be dependent on medication just to make me feel better. I want to feel better because it's a natural feeling better. Do you know what I mean? Not because of some artificial ingredient, whatever sort of thing. That's just my personal opinion. Do you know what I mean? So I'd rather not become reliant on depressive medications, or antidepressants, if you want to call it that, whatever. So for the most part, I've always battled with my depression in that sense. Do you know what I mean? And I suppose in some ways battling with it is maybe not the best way either necessarily sometimes, because the thing is that you become weary and tired, because the thing is it takes a lot of energy to do that. So in some ways I think it's a case of now not necessarily succumbing to it either, and not submitting to it, and just because, like, I guess that's what happened, and I guess you can see it in those videos, those 3 videos. You can see it that I succumbed to my depression. I'd got to that point where, you know, I hadn't quite given up the fight. I hadn't quite, you know, stopped trying to stay positive, but I was really struggling at that point to try and, it's a bit, I don't know, maybe some people out there who can identify with what I'm talking about perhaps do understand. People that's never experienced perhaps would find it difficult to understand. So I'm trying to think of another analogy, and one of the analogies that come to mind is like literally like somebody that's drowning. You know what I mean? You're in the ocean or something and you drown, you're treading water, and you feel like you're drowning sort of thing, and you know, you're desperately trying to stay afloat, you're desperately trying to keep yourself alive, but you know, after a while, you know, after a certain time, you get tired. You know, you just physically get drained of energy, and eventually it just gets to the point where you think, I can't do this anymore. I just can't. Do you know what I mean? And you just want to give up, and you just want to go to sleep, and you just kind of like, oh, let's just give up, and you just sink to the bottom. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. But like I say, I know what will happen. I've been to that bottom. Well, maybe not all the way sometimes, but I've been damn close to the bottom of that. On lots of occasions, believe me, particularly when I was homeless, more so when I was homeless, I guess, but also in other situations I've been right down on that bottom, and you know, believe me, it's not a nice place to be, and I've literally, you know, if you could see it as a metaphor, as like one of those wells, you know, a water well that people used to have, and you know, you got the little thing over the top and the windy bucket, and you wind the bucket down to get the water, whatever. You know, it's a bit like that, and if you can imagine that the bottom of the well is the lowest that you can feel, perhaps, in terms of your depression and so on, and then you'll see these nail marks and fingernails stuck in the wall where I've literally crawled my way back out of it. Do you know what I mean? I've literally crawled my way out to the top to come out of that depression. And it takes some doing, and sometimes I've had a bit of help, so I've held on to the rope, if you like, of the bucket sort of thing, and that being the metaphor for the medication perhaps, You know, so I've had a little bit of help in that sense, but also maybe a metaphor for people helping me, not necessarily just medication, but people as well, and other factors and so forth. But for the most part, you know, I've literally crawled my way back out of those, and it literally does feel like that, almost like in a literal sense sometimes. In some instances, you know, I think back to sometimes on the Tony Ellis unit when I was on the ward there, and get into these very depressive, dark spaces. And the thing is, I get when I'm in there, God, it's the thing is, I don't know. Again, I don't know if other people who suffer from depression or whatever may identify with this, but sometimes it's got almost this like double edge to it in some ways, because in some ways it feels, you know, that blanket of darkness comes over you, that blanket of despair and just kind of wanting to give up and so forth. A bit like I said, when they tread in the water and you're so tired and you just want to stop, and that kind of darkness envelops you, and it's almost like, it feels almost comforting to some degree. It feels almost like a comfort thing, in the sense of like, you know, maybe wrapping yourself in a blanket almost, you know what I mean, but you're wrapping yourself in this dark black cloak of depression, whatever that you want to describe it, and you're sinking down into the bottom. And in some ways it on one level it feels like relief to some degree, but then on the other hand it also feels like hell. It also feels like hell as well, because it also feels horrendous, you know, because all of those feelings and all those, you know, and who you want to be, do you know what I mean, the person you want to be, the you know, it's all still there, it's all still there, and for the most part it's just really tired and it feels like it wants to go to sleep. But then when the realization comes that actually this isn't just going to be sleep, this might be sleep forever, do you know what I mean, this might be never coming back, sort of thing. And that's again what it starts to feel like. Now this is my experience, I'm not necessarily saying that this is the same experience for everybody that suffers from depression. I'm sure it possibly isn't, but you know, for me it's kind of like, you know, you get to a certain point and there's a realization starts coming over you, and you think like, hang on, if I don't do something about this, if I don't pull myself out of this, I literally might not come out of it. Do you know what I mean? I'm not trying to be melodramatic here or whatever, but seriously, you know what I mean? You start feeling a point, and I did. Day 3 into this, and like I say, my friend came along at a certain point. But you know, the thing is as well, that I don't know for certain, and I guess I'll never know really, if he hadn't come along. I don't know, to be honest. That's all I'm going to say on that. I don't know, because you know, even though that realization was coming in at that point, you know, I don't know, it felt really, really close. It felt really, really close, like that self-destructive, that sense of, do you know what, I haven't even got the effort to pull myself out of this now. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to. I'm not even going to make the effort. So in some ways, you know, I'm glad he did come round when he did. When I say in some ways, that sounds as if I don't, but please don't misinterpret what I'm trying to say. But the thing is that, you know, I was really struggling at that point. But as I said, the realization then comes in, the realization that, you know, there's a part of you then starts to wake up. There's a part of you, it's a bit like, I don't know, maybe you're so tired that you go to sleep, but you initially sleep on what you think is just soft sand, and it turns out to be quicksand, and then you start sinking into the quicksand, and you're still half asleep, but then you come awake and realise you're sinking into the quicksand. I don't know, is that really a good analogy? But anyway, the thing is that there does come a point when a part of who you are, whatever, wakes up and says, whoa, hang on, you know what I mean? If we don't do something now, we're not going to come out of this. We're not going to pull ourselves out of this, and we've got to start climbing back out of this. And so, you know, that's kind of what I'm doing now. That's the process I'm going through right now. Is, you know, I'm still not quite out of it. I'm still not quite at the top and back out yet, but, you know, I'm getting there again. But like I say, the thing is, if life just keeps, if I get to the halfway up the thing and then the ladder breaks or the rope breaks or somebody throws a stone down or something or whatever, do you know what I mean? Whatever life decides, then it's just going to lob at me. The thing is, I just don't know what my resilience is going to be at the moment, to be quite honest. You know, I really need to try to do something about my financial situation, and even that feels like a daunting, difficult task. Now, from an outside point of view, an outsider's point of view, regardless of whether you've been there yourself or not, or whether you've never experienced it or not, the thing is, from an outside point of view, and I don't mean this in a horrible way that people don't care or whatever, or they're being whatever, but because most of the time they're not. They're being genuinely, and they genuinely care, and they're trying to help. But really, the thing is that, at least for me, again, I don't want to claim this for other people because I can't, because I don't know what their experience is. But my experience is that people try to help and say, oh, well, do X, Y, and Z, and da da da. But the thing is that for me, that it's not that simple as just like, right, let's go to the job centre and sign back on, or let's go and do this, blah blah blah. This, and I know that it's stuff that I've put there myself, and I'm not. Maybe there is some degree of me trying to make an excuse. I can't deny that. I can't get away from that fact. That's probably true, But nonetheless, the thing is, it's still not going to be that simple of just going down to the job or whatever, picking that phone up and saying, right, I'd like to make a fresh claim. Blah, 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 blah. Yes, that's easy enough, I guess. Do you know what I mean? And going through it. But the trouble is, a part of my brain is anticipating all of the anxiety that's going to start to then entail. Do you know what I mean? All the fear, all the anxiety, all the negativity, all the part of my head that's going to say, look, you failed, what's the point, all that stuff, all of that, yet to, then manifest itself, and it's like, a part of me's anticipating it, and then that stops me from wanting to make that phone call, and because the thing is, again, it's not like I pick up that phone, make a fresh claim, and all my problems are solved. Even in terms of money wise or food wise necessarily, because it won't be immediate. Do you know what I mean? These things, I forget how long the process is, but it's a good few weeks whilst you go through that process. And again, because they've changed all the benefit system again, and they this, that, and the other, and lots of other. There's another issue that I've just come across just recently, and it's in terms of the housing benefit. And from what I can understand, although I might be wrong, because again, it's not something I've checked out. Maybe I need to check this out. But if I make it, because you're in terms of because I get housing benefit, because the thing is that the amount of money that I make at the moment, well, you've seen, I can barely flipping feed myself. Never mind pay a rent on this place. Do you know what I mean? So I'm extremely lucky in that sense that because I get housing benefit, that helps me to pay what little rent that then I have to pay, sort of thing. So that helps a big chunk, you know what I mean? But once you start signing on, that gets linked in, and especially more so these days, the way the government have devised this thing, the what do they call it now? Universal credit thing. The way they've done all that, it's all now linked in, even more so than it used to be. And my understanding is that, if you make a fresh claim, I think, although again, like I say, I'm not fully up on this, so I'm not sure, but my basic understanding is that if you make a fresh claim, housing benefit now, well, maybe not now. I think I read something about it being postponed, but the plans are somewhere down the line, whether next year or whatever, I'm not sure. April of next year, maybe. The plan is to, from that point onwards, fresh claims will be where, and I think this applies to social housing and supported housing, from my understanding, is that the amount of rent that is paid in housing benefit is going to be cut. Now I don't know by how much exactly, but it's going to be cut. Not by a small amount, but not by a massive amount either. As I say, I don't know. I've only read a little snippet of this thing, so I don't know all the ins and outs. But the thing is, like I said, that all plays into my fear. That all plays into, you know, oh God, if I make a fresh claim now, and then it's going to mess up all my housing benefit, and and blah blah blah, and whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's just more and more anxiety to place on top. So, you know, and again, the other plain and simple fact is pride. Do you know what I mean? The last thing I wanted to ever do was to have to go walking back into that job centre. Sorry, you see, I'm trying to keep my emotions in check here, because you see, it's just the mere mention of that place is extremely emotive for me, because, like, to be perfectly honest with you, and again, it's not necessarily, I'm not having to go at individual people in there necessarily, because as I said to you before in the other video, I've worked with some people in that job centre in Brixton who are really nice people. Do you know what I mean? So it's not about the individual people that work in there necessarily. It's the what it represents in this day and age. For me, and I again can't really speak for other people, but I can imagine maybe a lot of other people feel in a similar way, maybe for different reasons, but might feel in a similar way maybe. But it is one of the emotive, you know, you wouldn't think, wouldn't you? You'd think like a job centre, well, why would you feel so passionate? And when I say passionate, I don't mean passionate as in liking it, the opposite, the complete opposite. Do you know what I mean? Feel so passionately, so much anger and almost rage, if you like. Yeah, rage towards a thing of all things, a job centre, or any job centre, or the job centre as a collective, as a whole, as a nationwide entity. You know, absolutely loathe it. Do you know what I mean? Feel so much animosity towards it, so much anger and so forth. You know, I hate it with a passion. I've got so much disdain for it. Do you know what I mean? Because they're not pleasant places to go into. You're surrounded by flipping security guards right, left and centre. Sometimes in these places, okay, I'm exaggerating now. Now I am exaggerating because my passion's up. It feels sometimes that you go into these places and there's more security guards than there are people looking for jobs. You know, because it's surrounded by security for a start off. And a lot of them are big hulking guys wandering around and this time. And again, it's not about having to go at the individual person that's working there, because, you know, everyone's got an earn and crust somehow, whatever, blah blah blah. It's not about demonising people. I'm just explaining that this is how it makes you feel. You know what I mean? You go in there and straight away you're thinking, whoa, what's going on? And sometimes, yes, you do get individuals that can be really difficult. Do you know what I mean? Really awkward, deliberately so sometimes, you know? And for me, the concept, the idea, maybe years ago it was like this, maybe, I don't know, I'm going back even before I was born, but I imagine the job centre is a pleasant place where you go in and you say, hello, I would like to try and find a job, please. Can you help me to find a job? Do you have jobs advertised? Oh, I would like to, you know, whatever. Do you know what I mean? Okay, maybe that's a bit of a weird scenario. I don't know. But, you know, I just imagine that the job centre is somewhere where you go to help you to find a job. But these days, it's nothing like that. It really isn't. Oh, you think it is? It ain't. Believe me, it ain't. Do you know what I mean? You know, a lot of the time, you know, as much as, like I said to you, that, you know, the people were okay that I worked with, when I say work with, you know, the people that I interacted with in the job centre, more often than not, it's just to sign that piece of paper to get your money at the end of the day. You know, it wasn't so much that they sat down with you, a bit like you did when you was at school. But again, I'm going back years, so it's difficult to relate my experiences back when I was 15 to what may be happening today. So it might be completely, but I mean, back then you went to see your careers officer. You know, the careers, we used to have a thing called the careers officer, if I remember right. I don't even think that exists anymore. At least I don't know. Maybe it does. Maybe I don't know. But we used to have a thing called a careers office. It wasn't the job centre, but it wasn't part of school either. But it was kind of like a bridge in between, I think. I remember going there once when I was about 15, like I said. But and again, obviously, my memory is going to be coloured now by many years. You know, I was 15 back then. I'm 50 years of age now. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, a big chunk of time in between. But you know, the thing is that you know, if memory serves me right, and it probably doesn't that well, but it wasn't like a really horrible experience. It was quite a pleasant experience. It's like, you know, they sat and spoke about what do you want to do, what career do you want, this, that, I don't know. It was very vague memories anyway. I only went there once, like I said, so you know, it was extremely vague. But anyway, my point is that you know, the job centre these days, because it's so closely linked with your benefit, which I think they should be completely separate. The job centre should be the job centre. Just go there to look and help you to find a job. Nothing else. It shouldn't be linked with getting your benefit. I don't see why it should. Do you know what I mean? You should completely divorce it from that. It should have absolutely nothing to do with the WDP. The WDP should be a separate place where you go to collect your benefit. That's what I think. Do you know what I mean? Now, I don't know, maybe I'm looking at it from a very old-fashioned, very naive point of view, and maybe these, I don't know, experts, clever bods, whatever, people in power, this, that, say, oh, no, see, we have to do this because of, God knows, I have no idea. But in my very simplistic view, to me, I can't see why you can't just have a job centre, a place where you literally go just to help you to find a job. You know, it's got absolutely nothing to do with, oh, I've got to go there because if I don't sign that piece of paper, I don't get my money. You know, that should be completely separate. Do you know what I mean? Because then maybe the job centre, if you take that element out of it, maybe we can get the job centre that we actually deserve and need. Do you know what I mean? Because maybe then those people that work in there won't feel under pressure to, oh, we've got to get so many people off the books and we've got to do this and blah, 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 and all this, and it's a government initiative this and government that and government this and blah, 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 and these are all bloody dolites and da-da-da-da-da and all the whole negative stuff that goes with it, yeah? If you take all of that away, then maybe we can get people that work in there that actually actively want to help people to get the job that they want. Do you know what I mean? Simple ideas, simplistic, I know. And maybe I'm living in a very naive world where that's just not possible, maybe. I don't know. But that's how it strikes me, is that, you know, take that element out of it. The benefit side of it should be a completely separate thing. Do you know what I mean? You go to the benefit office to get the money to live on whilst you're in the process of looking for work. But because the two things are linked together, although some people might say, oh no, they are separate what's names and the job centre's got nothing, they just, well, you know, but there's still that flipping what's name there, isn't there? Do you know what I mean? It needs to be completely and utterly divorced from the job centre. The job centre should have a remit purely and solely nothing to do with sending bits of paper or computer what's names to the WDP and saying, right, Joe Bloggs didn't do X, Y and Z to look for work, right, we're stopping his money. Do you know what I mean? There should be none of that, you know? Because, I mean, think about it. Doesn't it make a lot of sense? Doesn't it make logical sense when you think about it? When people go to that job centre, regardless of whether they are dolites or whatever derogatory term you want to use, you know, regardless of whether there's somebody that's conscientious that actually wants to try and work and get a job, or whether it's somebody that just wants to, you know, whatever. And again, I'm not knocking anybody. I don't. At the end of the day, if a person decides, you know what, I'm just lazy and I don't want to work and I want to live off the state, do you know what? At the end of the day, and I don't think there's very many people like that. Again, the statistics show. You look at the numbers, the WDP probably won't release them, but you look at if you find the numbers, you will find that there's far more people who are actually in work, but because they're on low wages, because they get that minimum wage or get less than the minimum wage, whatever it is, because of that, they need, like me, they get housing benefit or they get child benefit or whatever. There's more people in that situation than there are what you see, like I was saying about the Channel 4's Benefit Street. There's far, far more people who are actually hard-working families trying to, make ends meet, who collect benefits, who are actually in work, compared to people that are just sat on the couch watching TV or whatever. Now, again, we're kind of going off a bit of a tangent, and I didn't mean to go into that, because again, that's a red herring. It's a side issue. It's that's not the important thing here. The important thing is that I believe that if you took that element, that pressure off them for a start off, and also the pressure off us, that going to the job centre, far more people would be actually willing and happy, and probably engage far more with the job centre if you took that element out. That's just my take on it. That's what I believe. I dearly, truly believe that people would be so much more positive, would actually probably do their job centres. I can imagine that there's people out there who have worked, have had jobs or whatever, maybe at the moment they're not working for whatever reason, blah blah blah, but are quite happy and willing to work, but are just struggling to find work for whatever reason, whatever combination of reasons. But like I said, they go to and it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of those people are not doing those job searches, or not doing the things that the job centre are making them jump through those hoops because of the pressure that they're being put under. Do you know what I mean? And it builds this negativity. It has a very, very negative feedback in that sense. Do you know what I mean? The thing is that, again, I can't remember where this comes from. This came from the horse's mouth. I can't remember who told me now, but this was from the horse's mouth. When I say horse's mouth, somebody that works in this, excuse me, somebody that works within the WDP, or used to, anyway, and they were telling me that that's part of the initiative, that's part of the whole point, is to make it a very difficult experience, to make it a very anxiety-provoking experience. Now, okay, you can start saying, oh, it's all conspiracy, they don't do it. But there is an element of that, because it's a way of dissuading people to actually go and sign on. Do you know what I mean? Because, because of all the, stigma and so forth that's attached to it, and because of the processes are not made easy, and because of all that sense of pressure and the hoops you got to jump through and so forth, because it's inadvertently, I don't like to say it, I don't think it's necessarily they actually dreamt this up. I think they noticed it as a consequence of just the way the system was running. And I think people, the powers that be or whatever, they've noticed, what, there's a load of people that are not actually claiming what they're entitled to, and part of the reason is because they feel intimidated, they feel, it feels really difficult, it's not easy to access. Great, do you know what, that means less money that we have to spend on people. Great, keep it that way. Maybe even make it a little bit more difficult. So I don't think it was like a conspiracy in that way. I think that they've cottoned on to the fact that because of the nature of the system and the way it works, they realised, actually, the way we've got this set up, it's making people not want to sign on necessarily, because not everybody, I'm just saying that there's a certain percentage of people that feel, for whatever different reasons, that, they find it difficult to access through that system, because of anxieties, fears, prejudices, whatever, that they feel, they don't feel able to engage with it, so they don't. Do you know what I mean? Even though they would necessarily be entitled to. Do you know what I mean? And like I say, the powers that be are very well aware of this, and they're quite happy for that. Do you know what I mean? I mean, of course, if it was then flagged up in a public way and this, that, and it was on the news or something, blah, 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 then of course, then straight away they'd be kind of like, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. Do you know what I mean? What do they say? What's that word they use? deniable accountability or something. Well, I can't remember what the heck it is. Anyway, whatever. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, I didn't, flipping out. I've gone to a right rant here, haven't I? You see what I mean? And when oh man, I should never have got into this topic, should I? I should never have got onto the topic of the job centre. Oh, for crying out loud, don't get me onto this topic, man. Oh, I could talk for hours. I probably already have now. I didn't intend this, sorry. I meant to get this light and what have you, but yeah, I'm sorry, but that's it. Do you know what I mean? It's I believe that the job centre should be separate, a separate, complete separate entity from the benefit system. There should be no connection between the two of them. Absolutely none. You going to the job centre should have no dependency or should have no, it shouldn't be dependent on you getting your money whether you go to the job centre or not. Does people not see that? Because I cannot, for the life of me, get my head around and understand why people think that's a good idea. Why do you think all this animosity? Why do you think all of this negative stuff comes towards people that sign on or claim benefits or whatever and this, that and the other? I don't think it's necessarily just by accident. Do you know what I mean? The thing is, like I say, people should want to go to the job centre, and they should want to go to the job centre when they want to go to the job centre. Not because they're forced to or made to. Most human beings, from what I've met, from people I know, generally speaking, yes, there's a lot of sheep. You could argue there's some people are leaders and some, a lot of people are sheep and they just want to follow the herd or the crowd or whatever. But generally speaking, overall, most human beings individually do things because they want to do them, not necessarily because they're told or they're forced or coerced. Now, yes, again, I know there's a billion counter arguments. I can hear them already in my own head. Do you know what I mean? I can hear all the counter arguments coming in. I'm generalising, and I'm just saying that as a simple rule of thumb, whatever, that for me, it strikes me that if you make the job centres so completely independent and they're just solely about trying to find a job, one, I think you'll find that more people will use them for a start off. I think you'll find there'll be less trouble, you'll less need for all the securities in there. Now again, that's not about making them lose their jobs. They can, if they work for a security firm, surely that security firm can just move them on to another job somewhere else. Again, I don't know how it works. But I'm not in the what's the name of saying like, hey, let's sack all those security guards. I'm just saying, there'll be less need for that many in those places. I'm positive of it. You know what I mean? Because you take away that sense. I mean, again, I don't know how many people who watch this video have experienced being in the job centre, right? And again, okay, fair enough. I've got to qualify. Great, can't think of the word. I've got to put this into some perspective from my own point of view, of my own personal inner world in that sense, and my own anxieties and fears that I have. So, not everybody will experience this necessarily, and won't experience it in the same way necessarily. But the thing is, when I used to go into the job centre and I'd sit there, the amount of anxiety it would provoke. You know what I mean? Even if I'd done everything right, even if I'd done everything they'd said, even if I'd jumped through every hoop that they had told me to jump through, yeah, I would still be sat there feeling the most extreme anxiety you could imagine, It almost felt like I was going in front of a firing squad or something. Now, I know that sounds ridiculous. I know it does. In the cold light of day, that sounds absolutely, totally ridiculous. But that, again, isn't really the point. The feeling and those feelings that were still real and they were still there. Do you know what I mean? You could have explained to me as scientifically and as logically as you liked, but my emotional part of my brain would still be kicking off. Do you know what I mean? And so for me, it was a massive ordeal. It was a massive ordeal sitting on that seat, waiting to be called over, waiting for any minute, even though my imagination was taking off and my that stuff in my head was saying like, any minute now they're gonna say, oh, you didn't cross that I there. Oh, you didn't. No, sorry, dot that I. You didn't cross that T. You didn't go right. We're sanctioning you. Do you know what I mean? Now I know it's ridiculous because I'd done more often than not. I did do what they asked me to do. Sometimes I didn't, to be quite honest. I must admit, I got through with the skin of my teeth. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes on some days. Do you know what I mean? So then, of course, you can imagine my anxiety was even worse. Do you know what I mean? So you know, a lot of the time, well, not a lot of the time, but there's portions of the time when I kind of, in some ways, self-inflicted in a sense. Do you know what I mean? But you know, again, it's besides the point. You know, the thing is that if you make the job centre purely just about, you know, a place where you go to look for a job, and you go there completely independent of whether you anything to do with collecting your benefit in terms of whilst you're waiting to get employment. You know, you go there because one, you want to, because you want to get a job, and whatever. Do you know what I mean? You know, linking them together to me doesn't make any sense, because the thing is that, yeah, then you could argue, well, then nobody's going to go look for a job. You know what I mean? If they're just going to get their benefits and that's it, so they're laughing, it's like, oh, I don't have to look for a job, I'm just going to collect my... Well, no, because you let the WDP and the dole office or whatever, they do all that stuff. You know what I mean? They turn round. They don't turn to the job centre, they don't ask the job centre's got absolutely nothing to do with them. Yeah? They turn around to you and the individual and they say, right, okay, right, you have to do X, Y and Z to qualify for... I mean, I don't know. I mean, again, you know, I'd hate to have to do that job. I would hate to have to, you know, tell people you've got to do this, that and the other to be able to, for me to be able to give you some money so that you can stay alive. You know, if I had my way, like, you know, you've heard me say it before and go on about it before, about the zeitgeist movement stuff. I think we should do away with money altogether anyway, but that's a whole different video. So I'm not going to go right into that now, but... You know, so personally I wouldn't want to do that job, and personally I wouldn't want to come up with the ideas of how can we make sure that people go and get a job and this, that and the other, and we're not just living on benefits for the rest of their life. Well, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? I must admit I don't. Do you know what I mean? I don't know how you do that. And I must admit I wouldn't want to be in the position of having to try and figure out how to do that, to be quite honest. I don't know, maybe sometimes I'm too damn compassionate for my own good. Maybe not towards myself so much, but to the other human beings. You know what I mean? Because I would find that extremely difficult to you know, say to a man or woman, you know, turn around to them face to face and say, right, well, you know, before you get any money, so that you can go and buy some food for your kids or for yourself or for whatever, and this, that, and the other, I've got to make sure that you do X, Y, and Z. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I'm sorry, but that just churns me up inside. It really does. It churns me up. It makes me feel... I feel really... I don't know. It just doesn't feel right. It damn well doesn't feel right. You know? To sit there and make somebody have to do something just so that they can have some money to live. Maybe I'm just too soft. Maybe I'm too soft, too liberal, too whatever the hell you want to call it. Do you know what I mean? But I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel about it. You know, I would really struggle sitting in front of a man, woman, whatever, and telling them, no, you're not going to get any money until you jump through X, Y, and Z hoop. Do you know what I mean? Shit. Sorry, nah. I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. You know? To me, maybe my heart's too bloody big, but I'd be saying, like, do you know what? Just as long as you're staying alive... But it'd be nice if you would look for some work, please. Do you know what I mean? Whatever. Because I don't think this money's going to last forever. But, do you know what? As long as you stay alive, great. Do you know what I mean? So that's... I'd be useless in government. I'd be useless working in them places. I would. I'd be absolutely useless. Because I just can't. I can't do that. Can't do it. You know? Anyway, right. So I think I've gone on enough about that, to be quite honest. So this is nearly an hour long, and I've got to go stop this video, man. It's going to take 10 hours to upload or something. Right, okay, it's good to be back, good to be happy, and I'll catch you guys soon. Bye for now.